Welcome, everyone. My name is Christian Murray. I'm excited for you all to join our Sports for Good Pathway panel. We have a very illustrious panel of sports industry professionals, so definitely looking forward to our conversation. But before we introduce our panelists, we have some housekeeping for you guys. As you guys know, day 3, our last day, so we got to finish out pretty strong. So just some last little pointers for our campers. Be sure to continue to stay on top of your assignments at the Career Exploration Path program. You will be able to win cash prizes as well as scholarships and a lot of sports memorabilia from our illustrious industry professionals. So hopping into our conversation, I'm very excited for this one. We have people from all walks of life, Phoenix, Jacksonville, to Charlotte. So hopping into it, I'm just gonna go on the list of people that we have. So starting off with Ms. Claire Stevens from FedEx. We have Ms. Stephanie Martin from Brand Forward Sports, Ms. Christine Wiggs from Blue Cross Blue Shield, Ms. Christina from the NFL, and then Mr. Jose Moreno at the Fiesta Bowl, and Mr. Bernard Richardson from the Fiesta Bowl as well, who is gonna convene our panel. So I'm kicking it to you, Bernard, and we can get started.
Thanks, Christian. Appreciate it. And looking forward to our conversation. We're going to go through a list of topics, and then I'm going to throw it over to Trent, who's monitoring our Q&A section. See if you guys have any questions, we'll jump to those and answer them for you best we can. But hoping to have a good conversation, bounce some topics off of each other. And I want to start by just going around the room and just, if everyone can just talk about kind of what you do, who you work for, and your path in beginning your career in sports or around sports. Let's start with Christina, because you're the first one I see on my squares.
Thank you. Yeah, so my path into sports is super unconventional. I played volleyball in college. I went to the University of North Florida. And so I always knew I wanted to work in sports or stay around the game, not necessarily volleyball, but really any sport since I love them all. And I worked in sports media for 3 years after school at a local news station in Jacksonville, Florida. And then picked up a side job coaching high school volleyball and quickly realized the impact that a coach could have on a student's life. And so I ended up completely changing career paths and becoming a high school teacher and volleyball coach for about 5 years. There I was teaching intensive reading for students who couldn't pass a state standardized assessment to graduate from high school, which was I was very passionate about it. And Rashad Jennings, who I've been best friends with since I was probably 20 years old, his foundation, he was a player in the league for 8 years. His foundation focused on literacy. And so he asked me to come over to help with the programs. I did that for a few years and then was promoted to executive director. And then about 3 years ago, the NFL called and I made the switch and moved to New York City. So that is where I'm at now.
Awesome. Stephanie, what about you?
So I'm also a student athlete. I was a student athlete at Tufts University, where I was on the varsity sailing team, where we won 3 national championships, which was really exciting. So I'm a lifelong sailor, not the sport you always hear about. So I also knew I wanted to work in sports if I could. And the first half of my career was working at big corporate organizations like the Home Depot, Albertsons, Mitsubishi Motors, and my skill set is communications. So internal and external communications, and then also brand. After that, I went to work on big events. So I worked on the 34th America's Cup, Super Bowl 50, and the Rugby World Cup Sevens in 2018, where I was part of those leadership teams and helping to lead the marketing and communications functions. And then after leaving Super Bowl, I wrote a book on our experience, and then talking about how you can use sports for good, and big events can really be catalysts for good. And most recently, I work at an agency that I started where we work with individual athletes on their brand strategy. So helping athletes, professional Olympic and Paralympic athletes, to really think about their brands and how they can utilize their platforms off the field of play to share the things that they are most passionate about and amplify their voices.
Awesome. Awesome. Christine, I'm going to come to you now. I know that you don't work directly in sports, but I know that you work directly with us and integrating your business and your company into sports. So if you can give a little bit about your background, that'd be great.
Sure. Thanks, Bernard. I watch sports on TV, and I love people who watch sports on TV. And so I'm pleased to be a part of the panel. As you noted, my background is a little different. My background is as a research scientist. I'm a public health practitioner by training, and at Blue Cross Blue Shield of Arizona, the work that we do is around corporate social responsibility and also public health initiatives. My background, in addition to being public health minded, is around positive youth development. And so I think sports are a really important way for youth to develop connections and that sense of belonging and that sense of team while they're still building their individual confidence in self. And so extremely proud to do the work that we do through Blue Cross Blue Shield of Arizona, but even more proud to do it with good partners such as Fiesta Charities.
Appreciate that. Very much appreciate that. Claire, do you want to give a little bit about your background, or are you staying quiet on this one?
I'll be happy to briefly. In addition to working in sports marketing at FedEx, I'm also on the advisory board for Sports Biz Camps. So we're delighted that you're all a part of this week. My background, I started on Wall Street and decided very quickly that that was not the world for me. I like to spin it and say that I'm way too creative for numbers. But in actuality, as a marketer, there's a lot of numbers. So I then worked in publishing and then landed at the NBA, where I was able to pursue my passions for both marketing and sports. From there, I moved to Memphis and have been at FedEx for 13 years working on our sponsorship portfolio.
Awesome. Awesome. And Jose, I'll go to you before I wrap it up.
Yeah, hey guys, and much like others on this panel, as I was a student athlete myself, I played 4 years of college baseball in Colorado. First school was Johnson Wales University, where I studied sports entertainment event management. I interned with the Denver Nuggets and Kroenke Sports, and then with the NBA when they had the All-Star game there. Eventually graduated from University of Colorado at Colorado Springs, my undergrad. Went on to work with the Phoenix Suns, was there, and then went over to Grand Canyon University and started their community relations marketing as they were going D1 and we were building a new arena. And then I started with the Fiesta Bowl. This is my 6th season, and started off as Director of Community Relations and Charitable Giving, and has now since moved on to our Chief Marketing Officer, where I've got corporate sales, social media, marketing, creative, a couple other departments, but it's been fun to have a whole career in sports. And as Bernard mentioned, this is a very small, tight-knit world to live in, and just very fortunate to be a part of this with all of you guys today.
Awesome. Yeah, and so myself, Bernard Richardson, I very similar story to everyone else. Started off playing basketball, was my sport, and went off to college. I went to High Point University there in North Carolina, small little school, and I studied sports management. So kind of from the beginning, when I was a high school student, I knew that I wanted to still be involved in sports. I knew that professional athlete was not in my future. You know, God didn't bless me with the dimensions to make that happen, but I knew I wanted to be in sports. And so I went off to High Point. I ended up doing internships at Duke University with their sports marketing department, and with IMG College at Wake Forest. So I got some really good experience while I was still in school, and then eventually moved out here to Phoenix to start my first job with the Arizona Cardinals. And I was with them in their corporate partnerships team for about 5 years or so. Moved on to work on the agency side with GMR Marketing and the Miller Coors team, covering all of Arizona and Las Vegas. And then from there, ended up working at Barrett Jackson, which is a collector car auction out here in Arizona. So don't know if anyone's truly familiar with that, but a mega event that's mainly put out here in Arizona, but they travel the country as well. I ended up going down to Miami, Florida for a little bit and working with the Miami Dolphins. I was on their corporate partnerships team there. And now I find myself back here in Arizona with the Fiesta Bowl, working for Jose and with Jose, you know, on the corporate partnerships team here. So very excited. I love working for the Fiesta Bowl. We're going to get into that a little bit later about kind of why we all are so passionate about what we do and why we are so focused on sports for good, how we incorporate sports and philanthropy and kind of tying it all together to do good for our communities. Christian, and you touched on it, we're kind of all across the country, but I feel like we all have the same goal in mind when we're doing our work. So excited to be here. Trent, I'm going to throw to you real quick. Do we have anything in the chat before we really get started?
We have some great questions by Tyra. So it was hard to choose from which one I wanted to ask, but she says, as you grew up and went through schooling and even work now, what is one piece of advice you have carried with you to always strive for the best and be effective?
Any volunteers to start it off?
I'll start off. I think the one piece of advice I would give is really start to understand your strengths early. So know what skill set you bring to the table. For me, it was writing. I learned, when I was very young, I loved creative writing, did a lot of that in high school. And that was a skill I was able to hone in on. And because I was passionate about it, I was able to turn it really into a strength. And I didn't do the traditional career path of going into sport. I was able, through working in big companies like Home Depot, to find sport in those companies because of my writing skills. So know that if you can find that skill set early that not only you're really good at, but you're passionate about, that can open a lot of doors.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'll add to that is, I think for me and for a lot of us that have been a student athlete, is something that I've always lived by is never get comfortable. And because I always take the approach that the second you get comfortable is when other people could come in and take your position or, take your role. You have to treat every day as if, you're almost in a game and you've got a line of people that are waiting to take that role away from you. So always strive for excellence, always try to be the best that you can be, and just never get comfortable in what you're doing. You want to always continue to be better than you were yesterday. And I think it's just more of that athletic mentality that you have, bringing it into the workforce.
I would say one thing that I've lived by and still currently live by is to be where your feet are. So I think in hindsight, looking back over the last 12 years, one of the things that I wish I would have done differently is not always continually look for the next thing or feel like I have to live for the next thing or the next accomplishment or the next place that I felt like I wanted to be. If you think of a running back on the field, he has to go 1 yard before he can get into the end zone. And so if you ultimately have a vision of where you're going or a dream or desire in your heart of where you want to go, realize that every single step and every single yard figuratively will get you there. But if you're not present in that 1 yard, then it's going to be pretty hard to run down the field. So sometimes when you're a student, especially as a former high school teacher, I've had these conversations with my students is, I know that math sucks right now, and I know that all this other stuff is just stuff you're not interested in. You wish you could just get to the next thing. But if you're not present where you are, you're going to miss the things that you're actually supposed to be learning in this season where your feet are to actually get to where you want to go.
And I would just round it up by saying, find your passion and then try to build your skills up to support what you're passionate about. It sounds like from everyone's story and certainly my own, I've followed my passion and I've been with different organizations and had different roles, but it really is a result of really following what I knew I was skilled in doing and what I was really passionate about. So I'd encourage folks to align the both passion and skill.
Awesome. Great. Trent, we'll check in with the Q&A in a little bit here. But I want to talk about our first topic. Obviously, this is a Sports for Good panel. So I want to just kind of talk a little bit about the passion of philanthropy that we have on this panel. I know that several of you work directly on the community relations side of your organizations. And so I want to ask the question of, what makes you so passionate about trying to give back to the community, while incorporating the major events that we work on? I know some people on this panel have worked on Super Bowls and obviously the Fiesta Bowl. We're a major event each year and a semifinal every 3 years. But I want to just find out what makes you guys so passionate about, giving back to your communities. Anybody?
I'm happy to answer. I'll go. I think for me, personally growing up in Arizona and growing up in Tucson with a single mom, I couldn't get to where I was and am without the many, many programs that supported me. And I still remember, and I tell this story anytime I talk to a college student, is the very first sporting event I ever got to go to. I was a senior in high school, and I sat in nosebleeds at the Phoenix Suns game because I was in DECA. And it was at that point where I said, man, like you can work in sports, you can have players go into the community, you can make a difference. And I think I just remember the impact that it had on me. I remember going to the Salvation Army. I remember going to the Boys and Girls Club and being able to go into these programs that were free because we couldn't afford it. And knowing that if I could ever, very much like Christina and many other people mentioned, if I can turn my passion into something, into a job. And when I figured out what community relations was, and I was able to do it in the NBA space and working with athletes and being able to really just change the lives and hopefully the trajectory of individuals, I mean, that was a great thing. And to be able to give back to the state of Arizona where I grew up, some of the best memories that I've had is not necessarily the things I've got to do with players or at the game. It's what I've been able to do off the field. It's what I've been able to do with, the playgrounds that we're building, the football fields that we're building, the resource rooms that we're building, the teachers we're supporting. Those are the things that are going to impact and make memories for years to come. So for me personally, rounding up it's more, I grew up here. And for me, I feel like I have an obligation to give back to the community that gave back to me so much growing up.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think I 100% agree with that. And I kind of live by this motto as well as I really just want to love and serve the person that's in front of me today. So whether I'm a student or I'm at the NFL or I'm a player or I'm working at FedEx, whatever it might be, the goal is to love the person and serve the person in front of you. If you're on this call, it's obvious that you're ambitious. And to think, I always have this like legacy mindset of like, when I'm gone, what am I going to leave? And to me personally, the philosophy is like a life of service to other people. And so similar to you, Jose, is just being a teacher and seeing the needs that are so readily available for us to meet really inspire me to say, this life isn't about me. It's about the people that I can serve and the people that I can love. And when you see the impact of that, and even if you don't always get the letters, just the opportunity to be able to plant a seed in someone's life, and it might not harvest and grow right in front of you, but maybe for the next generation, because that person's going to come back around and remember what you taught them or what you opportunity you've supplied them with. I mean, there's nothing like it. It's priceless. And to be honest, when I was a student, even in college, I didn't realize that community relations was actually like a job, that I could do it for a living. And so that's why I'm so passionate about talking about it now, is that you can actually not only live a life of philanthropy, but literally have a career that you get to do it every single day.
I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, I found community relations kind of late as well. And I come from a family of coaches. We have 6 coaches in my family, and my mom ran a nonprofit that helped kids get physically active. So it's always kind of been part of, I think, the core of who I am. But what I love is helping people realize their potential and just seeing, the light bulb turn on for someone when they see this is something that I'm passionate about, or this is a door I didn't realize I could go through, or I have so many strengths that I didn't realize I had. And now because you have confidence in me, then I can find the confidence in myself to pursue them. So to be able to give people that type of support and enable particularly young people to see a pathway maybe they didn't see for themselves is something I've always been passionate about. And I think in the work that we do now, we really are helping athletes to see themselves as more than just players, that athletes have so much more to give. Their identity is, they might play golf, they're not a golfer. There is so much more to that person that they can give and the impact they can have on society, and the influence they have to be role models. And that's the piece that I have loved, is just knowing that a conversation you can have with one person can make a huge impact. You can have impact very, very much one-on-one. And that's something I love to see, is when you see the light bulb goes on in someone's eyes and they're like, oh, I can do this. You're right, I can do this. That's an amazing moment.
Yeah, I'll echo all of that. I think that, you know, like everyone said, when we were coming up in our careers, I don't think we had any of these resources, or if we did, they were very few and far between in terms of getting involved in sports, or knowing that community relations was an actual career path, or for myself, corporate partnerships and what that was, or even that was something that you could do. So I think that now, you know, knowing that we have folks like ourselves who are willing to give back Sports Biz Camps, I think this is a tremendous resource just to know exactly what you can do. You know, this day and age, I mean, I think this is a time where people are really passionate, especially the generation coming up and beginning their adult lives. I think there's a passion there for philanthropy and giving back to their community and, you know, social justice. And I think that these are some great outlets to kind of use the platforms of sports, you know, and the resources and the financial backing to do those good things. So yeah, I agree with every single thing that you guys all said. So we talked a little bit about the why, kind of why we're passionate about what we do. So let's talk about a little bit about the work itself, and how we do incorporate philanthropy into our everyday lives, and some of the everyday things that we work on that may not be directly tied to philanthropy, but through a roundabout way makes it able for us to give back to the community. Jose, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit right now, but I know that, you know, a lot of the events that we do a lot of fundraising. We just wrapped up our charitable giving grant cycle. And I know that everything that we do, the Fiesta Bowl, the Cactus Bowl, you know, our golf tournaments, everything like that. Can you talk a little bit about how those events help to not only raise money, but showcase kind of where that money is going in our community?
Yeah, we've got a slogan that we use, and it's a little bit of tongue in cheek that we started 5 years ago, is we say that we're more than just a game. And that stemmed from, you know, oftentimes when you would tell people you work at the Fiesta Bowl, or, you know, you're associated with the Fiesta Bowl, it's, well, what do you do 11 months out of the year? And it was, well, we're more than just a game. We're an event company. We're a nonprofit. We're a foundation. We're so many things to this community that, you know, we wanted to make sure that people realize all the work that takes place, you know, 365 days a year. And as Bernard mentioned, you know, our organization is made up of 100 plus Yellow Jacket committee members, who are our group of individual businessmen and women that will fundraise throughout the entire year to be able to generate as many dollars as we can to boomerang that back. We're a small but mighty team of 33 staff, and we couldn't do a lot of what we do without our great volunteers. But collectively as a family, we are building 2 playgrounds a year. We're building a resource room a year. We're giving out $3 million out in charitable grants, $1 million to teachers. The memories that we're able to create and the impact that we're able to do on a year-round basis, that's in the DNA of who we are. You know, and Christine can give more from the brand side of it and the inside of it. But, you know, you look at partners like Blue Cross Blue Shield, and when 2 brands can come together and to create a program or an event that's centered around youth or education or health and wellness. And we did a Guinness Book of World Records this past year with the world's largest game of tag, which we do own that. We successfully did it. But those are ways that we can not only promote the brand, but also get kids active. We can teach them about teamwork. We can teach them about healthy living. And ultimately, that is our goal, is to be able to just serve our community, as we've all talked about, because the games we look at is a celebration, and as a celebration for us to highlight the work that we've been able to do on a year-round basis, and also showcase to the players not just what they're doing on the field, but off the field as well. And that's what we're most proud of. And I'm sure you guys have ever talked to Fiesta Bowl, we talk about our community first, because that's really what we stand for.
Absolutely. And Christine, can I ask you, coming as a partner of ours, and I know, you know, Claire works at FedEx, and you know, Stephanie, you've worked in the on the brand side as well. What's the benefit of your company working with an organization like the Fiesta Bowl, for example? You know, on these events, these fun events, to give away the money and raise awareness and help your staff.
Yeah, at Blue Cross Blue Shield of Arizona, we talk a lot about we do well when we do good. And there's a lot of good to be done, but to do it really impactfully, you got to bring along some good partners and find other folks doing good work in this space. And so our partnership with Fiesta Charities has really exemplified that, finding an organization with a common North Star kind of goal and mission around serving community, and being a part of community, and not just coming into communities and offering up things, but asking communities to join and be a part of that. I think the example around the Guinness World Record Day of Play that we had was a great example, right? So from an organization that's a health insurance, healthcare organization with an 80-year history in Arizona, we wanted to make sure that we are constantly thinking about how we promote health, both physical and mental health, but then how do we make being healthy fun, right? And so with good partners like Fiesta Bowl, it's really easy to think of really innovative ways to reach out to the community, see where there's enthusiasm, but also a lot of need, to raise awareness, to bring exercise into the conversation for many families and many kids, and more importantly, just make it fun, right? There's a lot in the world that just isn't fun, especially nowadays. So anytime that we can find ways to build community, to support our communities, and gosh, let's have some fun while we're doing it, we're all about that. And so for us, it's that doing well by doing good, so we can raise awareness, we can promote both physical health as well as mental health, and we can actually expand our reach. We have a tremendous amount of good partners that we work with, but when you tap into a partner like Fiesta Bowl Charities, where their sector and the arena that they play in is around sports, that's a whole nother sector that we just don't on a day-to-day basis tap into. And it's an important part of community. So as we think about community development, community building, and community relations, we want to make sure as an organization that we're reaching out and extending partnership to folks like Fiesta Bowl Charities.
Awesome, thank you. And yeah, we keep mentioning this Guinness Book of World Records event that we did, and I did participate, and it was extremely fun. So I'll remember that one as a highlight of my career for sure. That was definitely unique. But before we go on to our next topic, I want to throw it to Trent, see if we have any more questions in the Q&A that we can answer for you.
Yeah, we have a great question from Faith here. She says, how have you seen community relations adapt and change over the years you have been working in it, in terms of the initiatives you execute and the pillars you focus on?
Okay. Stephanie, would you like to take a crack at that to start?
Yeah, for sure. I think, and when I was first getting into community relations, it was very much kind of like an inch wide and a mile deep. There were a lot of small donations going to a lot of different organizations, and we really realized you can't make a significant impact that way. So in my career, when I was at places like the Home Depot and Albertsons, it was shifting those dollars to look more at long-term partnerships where we could have ongoing impact in the community, where you really could see, you're building towards something. It was very much a long-term strategy, and that I thought really reaped a ton of benefits. And in particular, the Home Depot did a great job with one of their partnerships, which was Kaboom, which is a playground nonprofit that I'm sure most of you know about. But we did a 3-year partnership where we built 1,000 playgrounds in 1,000 days. And that was one of the best projects I got to work on, because we had impact everywhere. Home Depot was all about neighbors helping neighbors. So it really were people shoulder by shoulder, our team and our staff that worked side by side with members of the community to not only build it, but design it and make sure the community had input into it, which is so important, that the community is at the table and part of every one of these community relations programs. And then also to weave in the rest of the assets that big corporations can bring. Every one of our sports properties got woven into that as well. So we had, a full NASCAR sponsorship where the NASCAR was woven into the Kaboom piece, and our work with country music stars was woven into it. So to see a company not only have community relations maybe previously in one silo, to see it as really this amazing opportunity across the entire company to be able to connect with consumers and really showcase the values of a company in a really strategic way. That's one of the things that I've loved to see, that transition, and the impact is so much more because it's you're pulling on all levers in the company.
Christina, do you also have any insight into that question?
Can you repeat the question one more time?
Yeah. Faith asked, how have you seen community relations adapt and change over the years you've been
Okay,
working?
yeah, now I remember. Sorry. Yeah, so I would take an example. So one of the initiatives that I lead for the league is Crucial Catch, which is the league's cancer platform in partnership with American Cancer Society. We've had a partnership with them for around 11, maybe 12 years now. And it used to be focused solely on breast cancer. So you'd see in the stadium, everything was all pink. It was very disruptive. And we had a lot of success with that and donating our proceeds back to American Cancer Society. However, needs are always changing, and you always want to see how you can meet that need. And so 3 years ago in 2017, the league decided that we were going to actually support multiple cancers with awareness, but also with the funds and the dollars that we are raising through our retail sales and through some other revenue streams that we had for the American Cancer Society, because we realized that while a lot of fans and a lot of people were directly impacted by breast cancer, there were even more so fans, players, staff, coaches that either had the disease or have a direct tie to the disease. So for us, that's kind of the biggest thing that I can see that has been evolving. And then also with My Cause, My Cleats, which I'm sure if you watch football, you'll see during a few games throughout the year, the players have an opportunity to draw or to have paint on their cleats with the causes that they care about. And so something that's been really cool to see there is not only can the players support causes that are directly tied to the league, like Crucial Catch, Salute to Service, Play 60, Walter Payton Man of the Year, but they're also allowed to really give their own, be activists for their own causes that they care about as well. So it's been cool to see it develop into really player-led initiatives that the league will support nationally rather than the other way around.
Awesome. Anybody else have any insight they want to share before we move on to the next topic? Oh, okay. Thank you, Trent. Appreciate it. I'll come back to you with some more in a little bit here. But I want to talk about a little bit about the elephant in the room at this time and COVID-19, kind of how that's affected things. I know, Christina, you worked on the NFL draft, the Draftathon, which happened back in April. So I want to start with you and just talk a little bit about your work on that, kind of what it was for those that aren't familiar, and maybe a little bit of how the league had to shift its draft plans to a Draftathon, online, and then how to raise money for COVID-19 relief.
Yeah, first of all, it was insane. So the way that draft works, and really any of our major, what we call tentpole events, so draft, Super Bowl, Pro Bowl, Combine, Hall of Fame, kickoff, all those big events, we always plan 2+ years out. And we had our annual community relations meetings in March, and then my boss called and said, when you leave Louisiana and New Orleans, just go home because you're already down there and you're not coming back to New York for a while. And so at that time, around that same time, we got an email from our events team that we were going to, and Commissioner, which I love Commissioner Goodell because he's always challenging us. Like, honestly, when we first got this email that said we're doing everything virtual, like everything, a lot of our teams were like, there's no way. How are we going to do this? We've never done this before. But we were pushed and challenged to go beyond our limits and really worked in a way that something that we would normally plan in 2.5 years, we were ready to go in Vegas. We had the boats for the players. All this other stuff was all of a sudden going virtual. But as I mentioned earlier with meeting the needs and kind of shifting and adapting, which if you work in community relations, you learn how to adapt really quickly because things just don't go as planned ever. And we decided that what are we going to do for COVID? And so obviously, I think, Christian, you mentioned this earlier when we were talking individually, was that it's so interesting with technology, how we can all be in a room together and be on different, even someone can be in London right now and I'm in Jacksonville, Florida. And so we not only we had Draftathon, which raised money for COVID relief in our partners in that space, But in addition, we wanted to bring on celebs and athletes to a draftathon virtual stream, which was awesome because you'll have like 10 people in there with some are celebrities, some are athletes. We have Kevin Hart, like all these different people that would never be in a room together talking about what they're specifically doing in the COVID space. So this is less about like, let's look at the league and all that we're doing, but now let's draw attention to what celebs and those that actually watch football and are our fans, including celebrities, are doing in the space. So that alone, that entire draft raised over $100 million for COVID relief, which was a huge accomplishment. It was really just a testament of, sounds cliche, but I always say that when you hear things over and over again, they can get annoying, but they're usually a reason that they're said over and over again. That teamwork truly does make the dream work. And we saw the NFL departments that normally wouldn't work together. Like I was learning stuff about IT that, I mean, I'm just bad with technology. And now I'm like, oh, I can host my own draft. But it was cool. It was interesting, but it was cool.
Awesome. Some great insight right there. I want to shift it over to Jose and Christine, because this kind of goes to something that we're experiencing right now and with corporate partnerships and kind of what that looks like as we try to shift some of our focus as a brand. Christine, what are you guys looking for, as things turn more virtual and while still trying to give back to the community?
Yeah, well, what I would say is the reason our partnership with Fiesta has worked so well is it goes beyond just the one day in a game, right? So our commitment and partnership with one another is really centered around all the good work that we do 12 months throughout the year. And so we are planning for that, and we're still pivoting. I mean, part of what makes this all work is having a dog in the background who joins. Part of what makes this all work is being flexible and nimble, and having those really strong partnerships where we trust, we work together long enough where we have built a level of trust and understanding that ultimately whatever we need to do to pivot will be for the good of the community, right? And so as two brands coming together, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Fiesta Bowl, our mutual commitment, and we say this over and over during our meetings, is to make sure that we're doing the best we can for our communities. And that really is what drives us. And so we are willing to pivot, we're willing, and we are, as an organization, trusting that Fiesta Bowl will lead us in the right direction as we look to whether or not the game will go, whether it won't. We've developed contingency plans, and so we have a whole list of if this happens or this can't happen, then we'll go to plan A, B, C, or X. And it's really just having and being a good partner to make sure that we are communicating well with one another. We're transparent the whole time. There are certainly things that we want to make sure happen, and I know Fiesta Bowl is also driving towards making happen. But we've really built a good partnership, and for us, the game is exciting and wonderful, but really the value for us and our partnership is everything else in addition to the game. And so we know that will still happen. We just are being creative about it and finding virtual ways to do that and to be present and to partner with communities, even if it's virtually right now.
And I'll add a little to that, Bernard, is I think Christine hit it right on the head with everything. And, sometimes some of the best concepts, ideas, events, things could come just out of sheer adversity. And as Christine mentioned, we've got plan A through Z, and ultimately I think all of them are very worthy, could happen. And, the reality is some of the things that we've been faced this year could ultimately lead to a really cool campaign or a really cool program that could be a legacy project for us, something that we're going to continue to do, years to come. And, as Christine mentioned, I think pivoting and nimble is probably a word that we've all had to use more in our dictionary than ever before, because that's what you have to do. And when you align yourself with good partners that are flexible, but you carry the same mission, you're going to find a solution. It's just a matter of, throwing a lot of noodles on the wall and seeing what sticks, but something will come from it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Stephanie, I want to come to you because I know you worked on Super Bowl 50, which was an extremely philanthropic Super Bowl compared to other years. Obviously, the 50th anniversary of the Super Bowl for the NFL. Can you talk a little bit about why that was and your involvement in that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we knew that this was at the time, the biggest milestone the NFL was celebrating. And so in working with really closely with the NFL events team, it was how do we elevate this moment, and how do we at the same time use the game for good? And from the beginning, from our bid, it was all about how do we ensure that there can be a lasting legacy coming out of this event. And that's, I think, the way, that's the way you're approaching it with the Fiesta Bowl. That's the way a lot of events are approaching it. So for us, we set a very high target. We raised $13 million in the course of 2 years on behalf of the community. And so basically the way we did it was 25% of every dollar we raised went right back into the community. And that was the promise that we made. And because of that, it was interesting. We got brand partners that we may not have gotten. Our first partner was Google. Our second partner was Apple. All of these Bay Area companies that aren't traditionally involved in sports were interested in being involved because they understood how this game was going to be a catalyst for the region. We were able to reach 500,000 children through the program, and that was our focus, was working with children who are in under-resourced communities and really helping to provide them with resources and reading programs and physical activity programs that could help them jumpstart what they were doing. And I think one of the favorite programs we worked on was called, everything with 50 was 50 related, not a big surprise. And so we did 50 weeks to 50. We gave a small grant that went to a local community organization, a nonprofit. So it was a $10,000 grant, but for that nonprofit, it would make a real impact. And not only gave them the grant, but we also had them select a volunteer or a board member or staff member who was that kind of hero of that nonprofit. And then we also then filmed a short 3-minute piece around that hero and around that nonprofit that we then aired weekly in the course of 50 weeks on the media. So we were able through this program to talk about Super Bowl 50 for a full year, which is it can be a hard thing to do. And that program made such an impact on those small nonprofit organizations because it was a real injection for them. It gave them not only money, but for all of them, it was the first time they'd ever had a marketing piece, which was in that video that we created. So that was the big, for us, it was the foundation of what the Super Bowl was all about. How do we take this game and make it into a catalyst for good for the region? And then how do we then support community organizations that could have a lasting impact? And so we can now trace that, looking back now to 2016, we can trace those impacts going forward in some of the other larger $500,000 investments that we made into nonprofits in the Bay Area. And I think that's what's so satisfying, is to be able to see those impacts continue to live on well after the game has left town. And that partnership with the NFL really made a huge impact on the Bay Area.
That's great. One thing I want to ask, we've thrown around a lot of dollar figures, a lot of time, a lot of major events. And I know, and Claire, I'm going to ask you if you want to jump in on this, because it refers to the brand side of working in sports. Working for a sports organization like, whether it's the NFL, whether it's the Fiesta Bowl, whether it's MLB, you name it, or one of the teams. There's other ways to get involved and impact your community through sports, whether it's working for a brand like FedEx or Blue Cross Blue Shield. But how do we get more, as our students are entering the workforce, how do we get them to, kind of mold or influence their future organizations to get involved in the community, or get involved in the community through sports, even if it's not necessarily a sports organization?
Yeah, so I think if I understand your question properly, is it that once team members join organizations, how can they influence the corporate decisions around community involvement?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Great. So I think what's important for high schoolers to understand is that those of us who are already at corporations right now on the brand side, we're already thinking about how can we attract you as talent. right? So you're still in high school, you're going to go to college, and then you're going to apply to work at companies. But we are already strategizing and thinking about how can we attract you as talent? How can we be a destination company? We want to be a destination that you desire to work at. And so know that, and know that when you do land a job, and clearly you all will land good jobs because you're motivated enough to join this week, is that use your voice. And I've been talking about mentoring a lot, but find mentors, find executive champions, and know that your voice is really valued, not only as a team member, but as a segment of society. And mentoring, I just want to say one more thing about mentoring. You can call it reverse mentoring, or you can just call it mentoring, but I like to learn a lot from younger team members. So if you're fresh out of college and joining our team, I'm going to meet with you and understand, how do you feel about the messages we're putting out there? What do your friends think about our brand? How do you feel we should be making an impact on community? And what I gather from those conversations is that impacting the community is not extra credit. It's business. It's good business. And so keep that in mind as you join your organizations, and know that your voice is important.
That's great advice, and I couldn't agree more. I guess my point of bringing up this question is, and you guys, tell me if you agree with me or not, but as I'm interviewing folks or having informational sit downs with students and young folks, a lot of the questions I'm getting is, how is your organization impacting the community, or how are you giving back? Just give me an example, and so that's something that folks coming up into the workforce now are passionate about and are interested in. So I just wanted to touch on that a little bit there. So Trent, I'll throw it to you. Do we have a couple of questions that maybe we can round out the conversation with here?
Yeah, we have a great question from Nicole. She asks, what is the best way to partner with a team or an athlete around a good cause as it relates to sports?
It's a great question. Christina, do you have
best way to partner? How do you guys take that question? More so like, I'll take it from a team stand. I'll take it from I'm trying to think, put different hats on right now.
Sure.
What is the best way to partner with a team or an athlete around a good cause? Okay, so when I led Rashad Jennings Foundation, Rashad had a passion not only for literacy, but also to get his peers and teammates involved and give them a platform if they shared the same passions that he did. And if they didn't, we would tailor programs that that player could come on board with him and run their own program. So for example, Rashad was passionate about literacy, so he had the Rashad Jennings Reading Challenge in multiple schools. A lot of his teammates were also passionate about literacy, so we actually branded programs in those players' names and ran them for them, since in order to use your platform, you have to keep your platform as an athlete. So number one, as an athlete, you're concerned about keeping your platform. Bobby Bowden, who some of you may or may not know because he's like 92 now, but he's amazing, and he was a Florida State University football coach for many years. He's a legend, look him up. He said the same thing. He said, if you don't keep your platform, there's no way that you can use it for philanthropy or giving back. So first, an athlete is focused on perfecting their craft on the field. Second, you have to do, if you're interested in partnering with an athlete, or anyone is, like Rashad being an athlete himself, trying to get other athletes on board, it's do your research and look up their causes or what they care about, because most of the time their story as an athlete directly relates with their cause. Rashad had a reading comprehension deficit, so he wanted to make sure that he got kids excited about reading, and then also brought along his teammates to do the same. So I think, again, something cliche, but always said and always important, is when you're looking for a good partnership, whether it's with another brand, another company, an athlete, a team, whatever it might be, there has to be some kind of synergy or common interest, and hopefully that's fueled by passion or the personal organization's story, because that's always where the good work is done, is when you have that solid why behind it.
Absolutely. Stephanie, from the sports marketing agency side, do you have any insight into that as well?
Yeah, I was going to say just what Christina said. I mean, at the end of the day, athletes are passionate about individual causes, and there are organizations like, Athletes for Hope and others that help athletes to, cultivate what that might be, expose them to a variety of different things so that they can see different types of programs that they can work on. But that's one of the things that we do with our business is we sit down with an athlete and ask them, what are you interested in? And then how do you want to use your platform? What does the platform look like? How do you want to amplify your voice? So I would, just to segue off of that, I would also say as students, go into college and they're starting to look at internship opportunities in addition to teams and leagues and, nonprofits, there are also athletes who are looking for interns to help them with the podcasts that they're running or the video production that they're doing, because there are more and more athletes that are running, they realize they are their own media companies. They are the CEOs of their own brands. And so that's another opportunity that maybe didn't exist, 3 and 4 years ago, where athletes have some really interesting needs that I think in particular, this group can bring to bear with digital skills, video skills, graphic skills, can be incredibly helpful.
Absolutely. Trent, do we have another question that we can jump into?
Yeah, let's see. We have one from Christian here on the panel. It says, being that your guys' professions helped and inspire change within communities, what things inspire you personally and bring about change in your life?
Anybody want to jump on that one?
I'll jump in, and I think for a lot of us that have been in that community relations space, we're very fortunate that we get exposed probably to various causes and nonprofits more so than I would say the average person or fan. For me personally, there's definitely been some various causes that have resonated more, specifically even more as I've had a child, and I'm on the board of a children's cancer network that focuses around children that are going through pediatric cancer. And, for me, I couldn't imagine a world with my child going through something like that. So that has resonated stronger than I think anything else. And I've supported that group for over 5 years. But for us, fortunately, like I said, we get exposed by so many different groups that there's something that typically could stand out that I want to get involved personally. And I think that's also even a challenge, is being in the CR world, you have to separate and take off that hat of, I'm going to go in this with a mindset. And I always tell the boards that I'm on is, I just want to be an intern for you guys today. I don't want to strategically think how this event has to happen, the marketing plan. You need me to move boxes, I'll move boxes, because that's genuinely the way that I want to serve. But I think, like I said, I think all of us can speak to the fact that we get exposed probably more so than everybody else, and being able to see what sticks stronger. And then, as you move on and grow in your life too, as things do change. But I can tell you my focus is pediatric cancer, and I'm on the board of Miracle League that serves kids with disabilities as well.
That's great. I think what's so fascinating about sport is sport is such a platform for change in general. And I think that's one of the things that's always attracted me to it is, you play on a team, you learn things like resilience and teamwork and how to be a leader and how to fail and how to be able to get back up again. And there's so many lessons you learn from sport, and then taking those lessons to this life now and how you can use sport for good. There's just so much potential for that. That's why I've loved how the two pair so naturally, sport and being able to make change. And one of the things we're doing with our business now is launching a nonprofit side, because we want to really enable Olympians and Paralympians to get the support that they need to go and make the impacts they want to make in the world, and understand that even though they get a highlight every 4 years, they don't always get the spotlight that they deserve, and they work so hard and they sacrifice so much to represent our country. So to enable them to also have those opportunities, we're always looking for new ways that we can enable someone to create that impact that they want to be able to create, because they have this platform, and that platform lives on.
I'd also say it's saying personal, what inspire you personally to bring about change in your own life. I think I always say that the things that inspire me are actually the people that I'm trying to inspire. So for me, and I know for everyone on this call, there's a lot of people that are looking up to us constantly, whether we like it or not, especially if they're trying to get it in the sports industry. And I know we all like it. But that being said, it's constantly trying to innovate. And what fuels me is like, even though I have a job at the NFL and I'm so thankful and I love it, I think it's important that no matter where you end up, regardless of if you like your position or not, that you always fuel those passion projects on the side that are going to help you personally develop and pour into the things that you love to do outside of just your 9-to-5 or what you're doing. And sometimes those collide, sometimes they don't, but I think it's always important to work on things that you're personally passionate about. I'm building a little free library right now at a Boys and Girls Club I worked at in college, just because I now have the resources and know how to be able to do that personally without anything doing with the NFL. In addition, just talking about the mentorship piece, and it's a little bit of a plug, but I think it's because the high school women that are watching this would want to join, is I started a seat at the table, which is for women that are currently in sport and have been in the industry for a while, giving back and inviting people, whether high school or college female students, to also have a seat at that table and to have conversations and to learn from others. So I would say what inspires me to keep going is actually the people that I'm trying to inspire, which is the next generation, which is you guys.
That's great. Christina, for you just plugging that, where can people find more information on that if they're interested?
Yes. So it's on Instagram at _ join the table. And then on LinkedIn is the main group, and there's about 1,000 women in there. And that is just search a seat at the table in the group section of LinkedIn.
That's great. That's great. Well, I'm going to toss it over to Christian. I want to thank all of you for taking this time to talk to the students. This was a phenomenal conversation. I think we could have went for another hour, honestly. But I really enjoyed it and appreciate all of you for joining today.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Bernard. I think a big takeaway that I've gotten through this amazing conversation is that sports is a vehicle that can change lives. I know that's primarily why we all are pursuing and have jobs in sports and entertainment. And I'm just, like I said, I'm just inspired and looking forward to see how we continue to change and mold communities and just continues to grow as a family and using sports to be that platform to give back. So I want to thank you guys again for your time and closing us out. Some tidy up notes for our campers. Like I said earlier, guys, be on the lookout for your assignments to complete for our Career Exploration Pass program. This is where you get your scholarships and memorabilia from our professionals. And then closing this out, like I said, I want to thank you guys again. Definitely been great, and I definitely learned a lot and am inspired, as you can tell.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Christian.
Thank you, everyone.
Appreciate it.
So let me start recording.